today is going to be a little bit different than I normally do for my block of the day. It's going to include a video I did last year called Rick Rack Quilt, and it was done with scraps, jelly roll scraps, and strips. And I got comments, a lot of people don't have jelly rolls or don't have access to them or don't have a lot of leftovers, and how can they make this quilt without jelly rolls? So I'm going to include the full video that shows how to do jelly rolls. At the beginning, I'm going to show you the Jelly Roll Rick Rack quilt in the 8-inch size. I'm also going to give you 2-inch and 12-inch sizes you can make with this. Here is the block. This is the 8-inch block, and originally it was done with jelly rolls, 2.5-inch strips. Here is the diagram. There are 4 patches in this unit. Here is what it looks like with 4 blocks together. And in the video coming up after I describe this, you'll see lots of good pictures of the quilt I made like for this. And it's really a stunning quilt, and it's amazing you can make it with just 2.5-inch strips. But if you don't have 2.5-inch strips, here are the cutting instructions. And then we'll talk about how to gauge how much fabric you need for this. So patch A is a 2-inch finished square, half square triangle. You'll cut 2 7/8-inch squares, cut it in half once diagonally, and you'll have 2 patches. Now you'll need 4 patches of each of the color. You take 2 coordinating colors, and this will make 1 block. For 4 patches, you'll need to cut 2 of these squares, cut them both in half diagonally, and you'll have your 4 patches. Patch B is a 2-inch by 6-inch finished rectangle. We'll cut 6.5 inches by 2.5 inches, and we'll need 1 from each fabric. Patch C is a 2 by 4-inch finished rectangle. We'll cut them 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches, and we need 1 for each fabric. And patch D is a 2-inch finished square. We'll cut 2.5-inch squares. We need 1 for each fabric. There are 3 of the 4 patches you can use with your AccuQuilt. This is not a sort of standard size for AccuQuilt. There isn't a rectangle for this. And the first step, you're going to take the A patches and make your half square triangles. You just sew those together and you'll make 4. Then you're just going to refer to the diagram to put them together. And we'll go over that in just a minute too. Down here, if you want to make a 10-inch block or a 12-inch block, you'll have to make these additional cuts from each fabric. So you'll make these cuts above, and now you'll do additional cutting down here to get your 10-inch or your 12-inch block. Patch A, you'll need to make 1 more of those for the 10-inch and 2 for the 12-inch. And then here are the sizes for the new sizes you'll cut, 2.5 by 8.5 and 2.5 by 10.5. Here are the fabrics I've chosen, and I have 2 coordinating fabrics. These are the half square triangles, patch A. This is patch B, the 2 by 6-inch finished rectangle. Patch C is the 2 by 4-inch finished rectangle, and patch D is the 2-inch finished square. If you're trying to figure out how much fabric you need for this, what we do is lay these out and then try to measure it just to get an idea of how much fabric you would need. And this is very loosely laid out. This is a 6.5 by 12.5 inch ruler. So it looks like the 6.5 width is a good width, but the 12.5 are going to have to add about 2 inches. So if you have a 6.5 inch by 14-inch piece of fabric, you can cut these for your 8-inch block. So the first thing I'm going to do is take all of these, the 4 patches for the half square triangles, the 4 of the yellow and the 4 of the orange, and I'm going to sew the half square triangles, then we'll put the block together. Now I've finished my half square triangles. There are 4 of them for the 8-inch block. I hand cut these, and there's these little nubs that you're going to cut off. They just get in the way when you're trying to piece. and I just use my scissors and cut them off. You lay your half square triangles out on the diagonal, then you'll just start filling out the rows. And these rows are going to go like this. And follow the diagram and it will show you exactly how to do it. Then we're just going to sew the half square triangles to each row and then sew the rows together. After making all these 12-inch blocks, this little 8-inch block looks so tiny. But here's the 8-inch block. Here's the back. Press the seams open, and there it is. Now, let's take a look at the quilt you can make from this and how to make it with your jelly rolls. I call this quilt the Rick Rack quilt because it looks like it's Rick Rack. It also kind of looks like pinking shears, or the edges you get with pinking shears. I've made this from jelly roll strips, or 2.5-inch times width of fabric strips, and these are all scraps that I've had from my 2.5-inch strips. Sometimes when I finish a quilt and I have a little bit left, I'll just cut 2.5-inch strips to throw in my bin. And so there's a lot of that in here too. Here's the binding, it's a gingham, and here's the backing. It's just a swirl kind of moss color. And here are some more blocks. Of course, I have a pattern you can download. And the quilt finishes at 64 inches by 80 inches. You're going to cut pieces off of your strip, and then you're going to cut little triangles for the half square triangles, for these half square triangles. When I cut my half square triangles, I used the folded corner clipper, which I'm crazy about now, but I'm going to show you how to use it, how to cut the triangles with this ruler. And also, if you have just a regular ruler with a 45-degree angle marked on it, I'll show you how to use that ruler. And if you don't have the angles going this way, I'll show you how to use it with just a diagonal in the corner. So 3 different ways you can cut the half square triangles. So let's get started. The instructions are 2 pages, very easy. The blocks finish at 8 inches. This quilt is set 8 blocks across and 10 blocks down, and it finishes at 64 by 80. There's a total of 80 blocks in this quilt. You're going to need 80 strips. They're 2.5 inches times the width of fabric. When you're choosing your pairs of strips, try to get 2 fabrics that really contrast well. I found that some of the ones with the big bold prints didn't work out as well. So have a good contrast and I think you'll be happier with your end results. You'll need 40 light strips and 40 dark strips, and put them together in pairs that kind of coordinate or look well together. From this pair of strips you'll get 2 identical blocks. I've pressed my strips and I'm going to stack them together. And this little diagram on the front, page 1, shows you how to cut. I've cut off the selvage. Now the first cut's going to be 6.5 inches. The second will be 4.5 inches. And the third will be 2.5 inches. The pieces that are left, we're going to cut from each fabric. We'll need 8 triangles to make our half square triangles. So I'm going to show you 3 different ways to cut it. The first one, we're going to use the folded corner clipper. For this one, we line up the top edge, the side, and in this case the 2.5 inch mark. Normally you pay attention to this little vertical piece here, but we're not going to do that now. We're going to cut straight across here. Okay, and you continue cutting with this. Now you flip it this way, line it up, and cut. Flip it again, and cut. And flip it again, and cut. Make your last cut for this fabric. And now you have your 8 triangles for the dark fabric. And then we'll cut our 8 triangles from the light fabric. And this is all you have left from that strip of fabric. If you don't have the folded corner clipper ruler, and you have a ruler like this one has 45-degree mark that goes this way, and another one that goes this way. And where they intersect is right at the seam allowance. I've zoomed in to they intersect right here at this seam allowance. Also on this ruler, you can't see it too well, but there's a white line that goes across here. And this is the exact middle of the ruler, because this is a 12.5-inch ruler. And this white line is going to come in handy as we're doing our cutting. Here's our piece, and we need to get a total of 8 triangles, and it is 2 pieces together. So with this ruler, we're going to look at the 45-degree mark here, and we're going to line that up with this edge of the fabric. Now I've zoomed in some more, and you'll notice that where these lines intersect, this line goes across the top of this fabric. You line up this top part of the fabric, and then this is the 45-degree angle that's lined up with the left side of the fabric. And now we're going to cut. Let's move this away. Now let's compare the one that we cut with the folded corner clipper, and this one we just cut with the ruler. I put it on top of it, and it's exactly the same thing. So you'll get the same results. Now to make your second cut, you keep it exactly the same position that it was in. And now we're going to use this top 45-degree angle. Line this 45-degree angle with the cut edge you just cut, and remember the little white line that goes across? We're going to use that line to line up this edge of the fabric. So 45-degree angle here and white line here, and cut. And there's your other 2 pieces. Then start again with the other angle down here at the bottom. Line it up with the cut edge of the fabric, and line up this seam allowance here, and then make your cut. And then for the last one, keep it lined this way and use this top 45-degree angle on the line you just cut, or the edge you just cut, and use the little white line here to line up this edge and make your cut. And here again is just your little pieces you have left from the entire strip of fabric. The last method I'm going to show you is the one that's marked on page 1. And what we're going to do is measure 3/8 inch each time we take a cut. If you use this ruler, it has the 1/8 inch marks on them. Each one of these marks on this ruler is 1/8 of an inch. And you look at the picture. So we're going to measure here at the top, right here. And I like to, you can get big on here if you don't watch it. So the 3/8 inch marking, I like to put just on the outside of the fabric. So here's 1, 2, 3, the third one, and this is lying just along the outside edge of the fabric. And then I'm going to place a mark here. Okay, So there is your 3/8 inch mark. So there's your measurement. Next, you'll take the 45-degree, the diagonal marking on this ruler, and you're going to rotate it so the diagonal mark goes at the bottom of this, the bottom edge of this fabric. We're going to line it up here and then slide it over until the edge of the ruler hits that mark that you just marked here. And be careful that it's better to cut it a little bit smaller than a little bit bigger. So if you go over too much, you'll make it too big. So here I've lined up this mark here with the edge of the ruler, and I've lined up the 45-degree mark at the bottom of this fabric. And then we're going to cut. And let's compare it to our folded corner clipper. This is upside down, but that's okay. So let's put this on top, and it's pretty close. This is the least accurate method, but you can see it gets the job done. Now to get the next cut, we'll measure down here 3/8 of an inch. So there's your 1, 2, 3/8, and we're going to put the mark right here. Then line up this 45-degree mark with the cut mark and slide it until the edge of the ruler hits that mark we just marked, the 3/8 inch mark. So again, you're lining up the 3/8 you measured and the angle that you just cut. And there's your other piece. Let's do one more time. This one we'll measure at the top, the 3/8 of an inch. Line up the bottom edge with the 45-degree angle, and then meet where you marked your 3/8 of an inch. And I use my pencil to help me place the ruler right there, and then cut. Okay. Now for the final one, I'm going to measure down here, 3/8 of an inch. Use our 45-degree angle along the line you just cut. And put the edge of the ruler against your marking, and then make your cut. And now you have your 8 pieces of your light fabric. Next, you'll sew together all of your half square triangles. There should be 8 of them. And always press toward the dark fabric. So if you look at page 2, it shows you how to piece these together. After you make your 8 half square triangle units, you're going to sew the half square triangles to the 6.5 inch pieces and to the 4.5 inch pieces. And what you'll need to be careful of is the placement of the colors, because you want them to alternate, and the colors are shown in the instructions, so you can keep track of them that way. So go ahead and sew all these together, and we'll show you the next step. The half square triangles are now sewn to the 6.5 or the 4.5 inch pieces. The 6.5 inch pieces are finished now, and I press everything away from the half square triangle. So every time you're going to press away from the half square triangle. So these pieces are ready. Now your 2.5 inch squares, you're going to sew like this to your half square triangle and 4.5 inch piece. Then press away from the half square triangle. Now you're going to arrange your rectangles into 2 blocks, just like this, and sew them all together, and your blocks are finished. And here are our 2 blocks. So they can go either direction. There's always a light and a dark side. If we look at the quilt again, you can see how the blocks go together, and you make like a zigzag across your row. If you look at this block, you see there's almost 2 medium kind of fabrics. This almost doesn't work in here, but I left them in here anyway. If this were light and dark like these others are, you would see a definite difference in it. And also, if you look, it generally forms a pinwheel where the 4 blocks meet. You can't see it as easily here, but you can see it better here, where these 4 blocks make a little pinwheel. So you have a pinwheel going on, and then you have it could be a square with the 4 blocks, or just up and down alternating across your rows. So go ahead and play with your blocks, put them together in rows of 8, and you'll have 10 rows, and put those together, and then your quilt top is finished. Thank you for watching.